Hey, David Brewster here with another Brewster's Millions of Rants, and I've had a lot of requests about this, my guitar. And I've actually had a lot of requests about the pickups of my guitar. It was originally a Fender Floyd Rose Classic American Stratocaster, and it also originally had a maple neck, and this is the original neck, and you can actually see somewhere on there's the date stamp or whatever. But you can see it has a lot of fretboard wear, and it originally had a Floyd Rose, locking tremolo system. And I used this neck for years, and I literally shredded the finish, and I eventually, kind of sanded the finish on the back of the neck, and eventually wanted to move away from a locking tremolo. And just kind of a brief history. I mean, I've had Kramers and Ibanez guitars and Westone and Fenders and all these different brands. And growing up, when I was younger, I had locking tremolos, Kramer and Ibanez mainly. And then I got this guitar, which originally had a Floyd Rose. But the only original part of the guitar is the body, this jack plate, and the neck plate back here. Everything else I've changed. I've changed the neck, I've changed the pickups, the pick guard, I've changed the bridge, I've changed everything. So all my pickups are Seymour Duncan, and I've been endorsed with Seymour Duncan for about 10 years. And if you visit their website, you can actually find my profile on there. Just search my name, and you'll see I pop up. I've had a lot of questions about this, so I'm going to focus on the pickups just for a second. This is a JB humbucker, and I've really, really loved JB humbuckers for a long time. I've been using these for a very long time. I have a JB in the Strat and in my Les Paul too. This is a reverse wound middle pickup. I can't really remember the model number. It's, like several letters and numbers, and there's a dash in there somewhere. I can't remember the actual number, but it's the reverse wound Strat middle pickup. I believe there's only like maybe one or two options, but it is the reverse wound middle. And then this is a cool rails. And once upon a time, I used to have a JB, a quarter pounder in the middle, and a hot rails in the neck, and I still have those pickups. They're actually over in the closet right there. But I swapped those out. I replaced the JB. It seemed like I was kind of losing like maybe part of the coil or one of the coils, so I changed it. And when I made that swap, I went ahead and changed the other two too. And I wanted to get that reverse wound kind of hum canceling for the middle, and then I chose to go to cool rails instead of a hot rails. And it's very similar. It's just not quite as harsh. It's a little bit, warmer, rounder. And I really do prefer the cool rails, I think, over the hot rails. The hot rails is just screaming, which is good for some things. But I like the smoothness of the cool rails. The original neck for this guitar is this maple neck, which I showed a second ago with a locking nut, and I held on to it just for, you know, a memento or a keepsake or whatever. I think I thought I used like the end as a hammer, like for a tack or something once upon a time, but I don't see that. But anyway, after that neck, around the year 2000, I actually bought this replacement neck on eBay, and I think it's a 1999, yeah, January 29th, 1999, and I believe this was like a Lone Star, or maybe a Big Apple Strat. I can't remember. It was one of those two. It was an American Strat. You can definitely see made in the USA there on the headstock. And I used this neck for a number of years too, for about 6 years, I guess. And I wore the frets down. It actually had a fret job, and it was time to do another fret job again. I don't know if you can see that on the camera, but the frets are really worn out. There's grooves. And it already had one fret job, and I started to think about it, and it has the kind of sticky finish on the back of the neck. I'm not really a fan of this particular era where they used, I don't know what that is. It feels sticky, you know, and like even just moving my hand, I remember how it felt when it was on this guitar. I really wasn't a fan of that because it seemed like it made it kind of sticky or weird or awkward, you know, when you were shifting or sliding. So I definitely, you know, kind of thought about replacing this. And then it was actually last January, a year ago, I bought this replacement neck on Reverb. And this was a brand new, it was new old stock from the, you know, the company I ordered it from. And at the time, there was kind of this rosewood scare, and I got kind of paranoid. I thought, what if rosewood disappears from the guitar market? And this was rosewood, and I saw it, and it was actually even discounted too when I bought it, and because I had it, you know, kind of saved, and I was watching it. And then I finally just bit the bullet after Christmas a year ago. I was like, okay, it's time for me to, you know, buy this neck and replace the sticky neck. And I'm really happy with this neck. It's really, really nice. It doesn't have that sticky, icky feel. And one other upgrade that I did is I added these fender locking tuners. And I added those, I guess, last summer. And they made a huge difference in stabilizing the tuning. And it does add like a little bit of weight or mass to the headstock. I mean, not that much, but it was noticeable after I installed them that it seemed like, you know, there was a little bit more weight to the guitar, which is fine. I'm not opposed to having, you know, a heavy guitar. This is a pretty substantial weight for a Strat. It does seem pretty heavy, and anybody that plays my guitar, that's the first thing they comment on. They're like, whoa, this is heavy, you know. It feels almost like a Les Paul. And speaking of Les Pauls, here's, whoa, my Les Paul. This is a 2000 Gibson Les Paul Standard that I bought brand new in Evansville, Indiana at More Music. It has a pretty big story attached with me. I've been through a lot with this guitar, but maybe I can save that for a separate episode because I'm really just talking about tone and pickups and my guitars. But this does have, you know, some interesting history with me over the last 20 years, which I can't believe this guitar is 20 years old now, but it is. But anyway, I do have a JB humbucker here, and this is a Pearly Gates in the neck. And I also have a coil tap that was installed by my good buddy Jason Holder down in Evansville. And the Duncans in this guitar I actually got from my buddy Fred Hunt from Evansville. And I swapped the original, you know, Gibson pickups, and he had a JB and a Pearly Gates, and we kind of did a trade. And they're perfect. And I love this push-pull, which is basically coil tapping my bridge pickup. I didn't have it installed for the neck, and I might do that at some point in the future and have both, you know, coil tapped or split. One last thing I want to kind of talk about here is I have received, you know, some questions or messages from viewers, and they were asking, you know, are those your main two guitars? And yeah, mainly I use the Strat and the Les Paul. I also have an acoustic that occasionally makes an appearance in these videos. And I've had tons of guitars over the years, all different brands, different types. But my collection is down to the kind of nitty-gritty to electrics and acoustic. But I'm kind of different than a lot of players. I do have a lot of friends and a lot of, you know, people I know online or notice online, and they have massive guitar collections. They have 20 or 30 or 50 guitars or whatever. And I've just never been that type of player. I'm kind of more, I guess, of the Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, you know, that kind of camp where you really wrap yourself up with a guitar. You know, Stevie Ray had the, you know, number one, Eddie had his Strat, and there's certain players like that. Dimebag, had his main guitar for many years. And there's something about that, where you're spending time. And even though I've changed the necks on this guitar, multiple times, really in the body is like the only original part. But it has its own mojo. I don't know what it is. It feels like an old friend. When I pick it up, it's comfortable. I'm very, relaxed and comfortable playing my guitar. And when I play somebody else's guitar, it just feels odd. It's like, okay, I don't like the string gauge, I don't like the action, or I don't like these pickups, or I start picking it apart. A lot of guitarists out there, it seems like they listen with their eyes and they expect to see certain brands and certain things. And when they see it, then they're like, oh yeah, I knew he was playing Mesa Boogie or Marshall or, Fender or whatever. And then when they see something different or they notice something different, it seems odd or out of place or strange. And it's like, well, why are you using that? And it's like, well, does it sound good? Yeah. Well, then what's the problem? Everybody should be individuals, and you should try to find your own sound, your own tone, and find what, works and sounds best for you. Because we're all a little bit different. As much as we want to pretend like we're all the same, we're not the same, because if I was able to hand this guitar to you and you started playing through my rig, through my guitar, it wouldn't sound like me. It would sound like you playing my equipment. And that's really hard to wrap around your head. But I've actually done experiments with that, like in group lessons, where we passed the cable, and played through the same amp. And it like proved, to groups of people that, tone and a good sound and everything, it really is in your hands. It doesn't have anything to do with, what's written on the price tag or what brand is, on the guitar or the amp or whatever. It's all in your hands. It really is. So anyway, leave some feedback and some comments. Please subscribe to Late Night Lessons, and I'll be back before you know it with more content and material. Thank you.